Kim Caldwell just got paid. How much did she get paid? And what do you make initially before we dive into four downs of the fact that Kim Caldwell, after just one season, and it was a great season, not taking anything away from her. I thought that she would be lucky to make the NCAA tournament. She makes the Sweet 16, beats Ohio State at Ohio State, which is pretty impressive, and won 20-plus games. So, listen, I think it was fine to pay her. What did you make of the timing and the decision to go ahead and pay her after year one? Now, I want to point out this is not just a contract that extends you to 5 years so that it helps you in recruiting, because you can't have a 2-year contract in recruiting. These players aren't going to play for you. But what did you make of Kim Caldwell getting some cash?
Yeah, so Kim Caldwell has her contract extended through 2029, 2030. She is making the details of it are not were not disclosed, but as of right now, she's making $750,000 a year. That probably goes up, but it's probably not going to go up enough for her to be in the top 10 of coaches, women's basketball coaches' salaries. Well earned, number one recruiting class coming in, Sweet 16 her first year with a team that people didn't think could get to the NCAA tournament at one point. Definitely showed promise, but yeah, obviously you're paid for what you're paid for two things, and this is what people don't get. And Dave, I know you know this, covering sports. What's the biggest mistake people make in paying people in sports?
Too big of a buyout.
Mine is paying people for what they've done, not what you're expecting them to do.
Okay.
And here's my argument on that. How many players have you seen get big contracts because they balled out for a few years, but like they're on the back end now of their career, and you're like, they're not going to match that production. You're paying them for what they've done, but what you should be paying them is for what you expect them to do. It's like an investment in a stock, right? You don't invest in stock because of how valuable it is. You invest in stock because of how valuable you think it's going to be, right? So it's the same with players and coaches. Kim Caldwell, this is giving her an extension and a good pay raise, I think, to a certain degree, is an investment, because I don't think anybody expects this, just the Sweet 16 and getting bounced out, to be the standard for Tennessee Lady Vols basketball. But they do think that this is a sign that this program is drastically on the rise. So you might as well go ahead and pay her now because of what you think she can do in the future.
Okay. So I think we would all agree, before we get to four downs, that Dawn Staley should be the highest paid coach. She's got a contract worth $25 million. That's pretty good. And she got a $4 million signing bonus. So over the course of 5 years, I've got her making right at $5 million if you want to backload the signing bonus, however you want to do it. Now, according to USA Today, she's making $3.1 million. Now, I want to remind you, these numbers are a year old. Okay, so they're going to go up. Who do you think is the highest paid coach in women's basketball?
I would assume it's Gino Auriemma or Dawn Staley.
It is Kim Mulkey at $3.2 million. Gino makes $3.1 million. I can't argue that, short of a Final Four championship run, that Kim Caldwell should approach those numbers yet. Fair?
Fair. Same with me. I got it up too. And yes, Dawn Staley's tied with Gino, right? At 3.1.
Yes. Now, going just a little bit below that, Vic Schaefer gets 2.3 at Texas. Texas is a unique situation. They've got more money than God. Okay, so if they want to pay a women's basketball coach to hang out, he's a solid coach. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, and despite no national champions, Vic Schaefer is a regular Final Four contender, whether it be Texas or Mississippi State, every year.
Yep. Brendan Freese at Maryland makes, sorry?
Brenda Freese.
Brenda, what did I say?
You said Brendan. Sorry.
Brenda Freese makes $1.8 million. Jeff Walls, who a lot of people thought Tennessee should have gotten, makes $1.7 million. Joni Taylor at Texas A&M makes $1.5 million. Lisa Bluter at Iowa makes $1.4 million. Terry Morin at Indiana makes $1.25. Adea Barnes makes $1.2. Shauna Green at Illinois makes $1.1. Now, I mentioned to you that this was a dated list, and they'll come up with a new one soon. Kelly Harper was in at $1.1 million. I'm paying Kelly Harper. I'm sorry, I'm paying Kim Caldwell more than Kelly Harper just out of pragmatics, just out of, I mean, you've got to pay her more than she is a better coach than Kelly Harper.
Yes, I agree. That was more of how long Kelly Harper had been there and what she had done based on 2019 season. Tennessee has always been in a bit of a bind with paying women's basketball coaches, and I'm going to tell you guys why. When Holly Warlick was hired after Pat Summitt stepped down, however we think this worked out, I think we all agree it didn't work out. I don't think there was any question that she should have gotten the job, right? I mean, she was Pat Summitt's 30-year assistant and like the right-hand woman. Like if Pat's stepping down, it's her job, right?
I would have made a clean break, but I see your point.
I think in that time, it was Holly Warlick's job. Holly Warlick had earned the right to be the head coach of that program. Now, one of the problems with that was that there was never, I'm just going to say this, in any sport, there's never been a more qualified assistant coach in history to be a head coach than Holly Warlick after Pat Summitt stepped down. I think in that moment, Tennessee, because she was an assistant, shortchanged her salary significantly and never gave her a 5-year deal. And I think that actually hurt her in recruiting in a lot of ways. You got to remember, these 5-year contracts are a big deal.
No, I remember that. And I remember thinking they just cut her off the knees. Because if you have a 3 or 4 year contract, sorry, ain't going to work. Coop, what should we do?
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
All right, Coop, we'll do that just now as it is time for 4 Downs. As we do that right now, 4 Downs. Brought to you by National Fitness Center. Unmatched value, limitless options. Begin your fitness journey today. NFC1.com. NFC1.com.
Coop here. First down.
All right. Should Caldwell be a top 10 paid coach? Well, based off the numbers I just gave you, I think absolutely yes. I think she should be along the lines of a top 7 or 8 paid coach, maybe even as high as 5. So I'm absolutely on board with this.
Yes, I'm on board too. When you consider not just what she's done, but when you also just consider the fact that where she is, she's at the Lady Vols. That's a job that's supposed to pay. So, I mean, she's got to be top 10, top 5 after what she did this year.
All right.
Coop here. First down.
Should she already...
That was first down, wasn't it? Wow, Colorado rough.
Second down.
I'm telling you, man, this cold mess has got me, buddy. I'm doing the best I can. Should she already make more than Holly Warlick or Kelly Harper did?
No. And the only reason I say that right now is something feels inherently off with that, particularly with the Holly. I'm changing my mind. Yes. Here's what she should make more than those two. And then Danny White should come out and say, it's not my fault that Holly Warlick was underpaid and criminally got a bad contract. That was wrong what the university did. I'm not going to make that mistake. I'll make sure that they don't make that mistake again.
All right. Let's get to 3rd down. Coop.
Cooper Mays here. Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. 3rd down.
All right, 3rd down is this. How much is fair for non-revenue coaches to make? As a businessman, I'm going to tell you as little as you can possibly pay them. However, I have a lot of respect for the exposure they bring to a football program. I'll never forget Terry Fair telling me he didn't know anything about Tennessee till he saw the Lady Vols, and then he was all in. And he loved Tennessee from that point forward. So I think the exposure that it brings your program is huge. Am I a big women's basketball fan? No, I'm not. Nothing personal. I just have too much to do right now with my life. And I think that Tennessee ultimately has to do the right thing. They have to pay the coaches, especially since you're Tennessee, like you mentioned. You have to pay the coaches in line with other coaches. But as a pure businessman, non-revenue sports coaches shouldn't make a lot of money, in my opinion. I mean, let me ask you this. Would you rather throw, let's say she gets up to 1.25. Can we say that just for fun?
Yeah.
Okay. Would you rather spend 1.25 on a basketball coach that is going to make you competitive and get you into the Sweet 16? Or would you rather pay $250,000 on a coach that's just going to do the darn best they can and $1 million to make Mike Matthews happy?
No, if the options are those two, I think you go with the former. And because I think even if you lose out on Mike Matthews, I don't think one football player can never be a make or break for the program at the entire expense of the women's basketball program. I get your point, but Dave, this is where I get you think from a business side, and I totally understand that. I think being a sports owner or an athletic director is more than just the bottom line, though. It's not like you're the CEO of a business at that point, which is you're just trying to maximize value for your shareholders. The athletic director is, I mean, Dave, think about it. They solicit a lot of money from donors and things like that. Part of that is people want to win in these sports, and whatever else you want to say, people want to win in women's basketball. They really care about it. So I think you got to keep them reasonably competitive. That doesn't mean the business side's not a factor at it, but I think you can't just think straight bottom line the way you could if you were the CEO of Walmart.
By the way, Steve sounds like my mom. My mom's pushing Flonase on me. No, he said I had bad allergies for 10 years, started using Flonase. Okay, so I guess I'll do that. Really helped me. All right, I'll listen to you, but I'm not listening to my mom. Steve says, by the way, that the non-revenue coaches should make $5 an hour.
That's below minimum wage, but okay.
Yeah,
sure, that would be illegal.
I think he's joking a little bit. Not really. If you sign him up,
but you can't just think. Again, bottom line is not the only way you can think with sports programs at a public university that gives out scholarships where they bleed money in so many different areas because they're giving out scholarships. You're thinking a lot. You're thinking along so many other lines. Again, you're not the CEO of Walmart. You're not just thinking, let's make this profitable. I mean, not everything is supposed to just be run like a business. So, I mean, I get the business side and you would think that, but like an athletic director of a sports program has a different job than to just generate revenue and than to just think about bottom line. And, you know, we talked about athletic budgets earlier, Dave. I mean, we can just go back to the revenues and expenses real quick. Ohio State, their overall profits last year were 26 million, and I believe Alabama's overall profits were but many of the schools, their total revenue, their expenses, their profits weren't huge, even if their revenue was, but they'd still take that because they got national titles here or Final Fours here or things like that here. I mean, Florida has a $16 million profit, but they're in the Final Four in basketball. I think they'll take that over. Would you rather have, put it this way, would you rather have a $5 million profit and no success in the revenue in the non-revenue sports, or a $2 million profit and success in the non-revenue sports when you still have enough to cover all your bills and bases as an athletic director?
Again, I love the publicity of it. If I'm being a businessman, I'm not going to pay that much, but I love the publicity of it. I believe basically when you stroke a check to whoever the women's basketball coach may be, you need to keep in mind that you're also buying advertising time. I mean, that's what,
and also you need to keep in mind just that you're making your alumni happy that you're winning in that sport. I mean, that's part of your job as athletic director is twofold. It's not just to generate the revenue; it's to make people happy with the wins.
All right, last down, Coop.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. 4th down.
All right, 4th down is this: what is Caldwell's ceiling in terms of pay? Caleb, this is an impossible question. I appreciate you for writing it, but she's going, I believe, to make a Final Four or 2, maybe win a national championship. She's going to be up in whatever the range may be, but that could be 5 years from now. And Don Staley may be making $6, $7, or $8 million a year. I believe if she has this success, that I believe she will, and everybody's giving me all kinds of great suggestions on how to get over this sinus infection cold. And I appreciate you. And I will go back and look at every message. But I don't know what that number is going to be. That could be $6 or $7 million. Football coaches might be making $20 million in 5 years. I mean, the numbers have gone wacko jacko, and they're not stopping. So,
okay, unadjusted for inflation.
Okay, I think she should be in I think she should eventually be in the top 3 paid coaches, because I think she'll have that much success. If I'm wrong, then absolutely not. But okay, I think I'm going to be right.
Let me side with you from the previous one and pull a Danny White, because I think this is why Danny White hired her to begin with, because she was, let's call it what it is, she was cheap. Even though she's a good hire. I think her ceiling, I think Danny White does think winning, but you do have to think business somewhat. It is a factor, meaning her ceiling is she could make in this market, $2 million. I don't think they're going to throw the 3 million range at her. I don't. I think once you start throwing the 3 million range, the way they did with Gina Oriam and Don Staley, you just can't do that for a non-revenue sport.
No, I think if she wins, what if she wins 4 straight Final Fours or 4 straight national championships?
Well, here's where the hard part is. If she goes to wins 4 straight national championships, there's a really good chance at that point the Lady Vols are producing revenue.
We actually have a quote from when Danny White first met Kim Caldwell.
That's hot.
No, no, he didn't say that. Please, come on. All right, so I'm gonna go drink half of onion and clove or garlic. Yeah, Timothy, you're as bad as I am.
That's hot.
I'll tell you one thing though. I mean, other than Don Staley, who would you rather have just as a public perception person? I'm not talking about looks, but Kim Mulkey's crazy. Gino Ariema's past his prime. I mean, other than Don Staley, maybe the Walls guy at Louisville. I mean, who would you really rather have as the face of your program? I'm not just talking about good looking or not, but she represents the program well, and she calls out her players, which I love. I think Josh Heupel should call her about that and say, hey, how do you do that without pissing them off? Because
that's very true.
I mean, she does it. I mean,
yeah,
the Arkansas game to not call out Nico in the last drive, and you pointed out one play, I pointed out another. I thought it was weak sauce.
And you know what's funny is she maybe Kim Caldwell gets that from Rick Barnes because Rick Barnes calls out his players all the time. You ever notice that? And
24/7,
they buy into him.
I'm going back to Sevier Heights Church. He hasn't been there. The team, he takes a lot of his teammates, and I'm kind of wondering if Rick Barnes, when they pass out the tithe bowl, if he might just be like, "That's all you're giving." I'm kind of wondering. I mean, I think he demands stuff from his players all the time, which is why I don't have a problem with him doing it at press conferences. Just as long as you're saying the same thing privately, right?
Right. No, I agree. I think Rick Barnes.
The flip side of that, real quick, is Philip Fulmer wouldn't criticize his players outside the practice field when you're coaching everybody, and you really don't know if you're getting criticized or not. But he would come lambast them, knowing that we'd write it in the paper. And the next day, they would have the best practice ever. Whatever group it was, whether it was offensive line, whoever he called out, the next day, man.
So he knew how to get them. He knew how to get the message to the media. Well, Fulmer would publicly call out units. He would say the offensive line did not play well today, or the receivers did not play well. He just wouldn't say the names of who did not play well.